Let's get to the big news breaking from Rome this week. An announcement in a report by the Associated Press that Pope Francis has stripped Cardinal Raymond Burke, the former head of the Vatican's High Court, of his Vatican apartment and his pension. This follows the removal of Texas Bishop Joseph Strickland, as well as the dismissal of Pope Benedict's former secretary, Archbishop Georg Gonswain, earlier this year. Is there a pattern to these actions by Pope Francis? Here to report is senior correspondent for the National Catholic Register, Edward Pentin. He joins us now from Europe. Ed, the AP broke this news on Tuesday, which I found odd. Didn't come from the Vatican. It came via the AP, that Pope Francis would be taking back Cardinal Raymond Burke's Vatican residence as well as his salary. And according to reports that first surfaced in Italian Catholic news blogs, Francis announced his plans privately at a meeting on November 20th. Now, anonymous sources quoted Pope Francis as saying, "Cardinal Burke is my enemy, so I take away his apartment and his salary," end quote. What are you hearing from your sources about this alleged quote? And was this a surprise to people in Rome?
Yes. I mean, first of all, Raymond, the Pope made it clear later on that he didn't call Cardinal Burke his enemy, but the rest of it does seem to be true. There's a bit of mixture, I think, of great sadness about this, of shock and really anger. And it's directed not really against Cardinal Burke, of course, but against the Pope and the way he's acted about this, the way he's handled it, and this decision of his to take away Cardinal Burke's apartment and salary. And the reason that's been given, of course, is that the Pope sees Cardinal Burke as sowing disunity. But the disunity is really, I mean, you hear this a lot. It doesn't come from people like Cardinal Burke, who's merely trying to uphold and remain faithful to divine revelation, apostolic tradition, Holy Scripture, and the magisterium. And the Pope, Cardinal Burke, in fact, said this only last month. He said the sheep depend on the courage of pastors who must protect them from the poison of confusion, error, and division. And that's what he sees his role as. So that's how he sees things. But the disunity, really, I think many people see now is the consequence of the Pope not really heeding the advice from cardinals such as Cardinal Burke and others who've made representations behind the scenes in private to him to change direction, and he's not heeded those calls. It's a consequence also of the persistent, I think, lies, deceit, and sophistry which we've seen coming from not only the people around the Pope, but the Pope himself. And that's led, I think, to what many people see as a decade of squabbling, acrimony, and division. It's also a consequence, as we know, of marginalizing and ignoring or insulting laity and clergy who dare to uphold the Church's teaching and tradition and dare to preserve the deposit of faith, which of course is something which everyone says the Pope should be doing. So as you can see, the seeds of disunity, I think many people feel, do not come from somebody like Cardinal Burke, but from the Pope himself.
Ed, Vatican spokesman Matteo Bruni has not answered any questions regarding Cardinal Burke's status. Instead, he keeps referring questions to the Cardinal or his office. Has the Vatican as yet responded or given any official reason as to why this action was taken? Burke told the Wall Street Journal he wouldn't leave Rome, even if he had to find other living arrangements, because he considers it his duty as a cardinal to remain there.
Right. No, we've heard nothing at all from the Vatican about this, nothing official. We've heard this through Austin Ivory, the explanation given, who's his biographer. And Austin Ivory isn't anything official in the Vatican at all. So that's another surprise. And of course, a lot of people have also spoken about how badly this has been handled by the Pope, and the fact that he's let this be known, first of all, in private to the heads of dicasteries, something very personal to Cardinal Burke, and then doesn't even notify the Cardinal about it when it makes it to the press, and instead goes through not even official channels, but his biographer, and still hasn't notified the Pope at all about officially about his plans. So the whole way it's been handled, I think, has been, many people see it as very regrettable.
Yeah, well, I mean, we have to say it. I'm just going to be blunt. I've been blunt for years and years with this audience. I'm not going to stop now. This was a public hit not a personal or private correction. This could have been handled in private. Instead, it becomes a public spectacle because of the way it was handled. Leaked to the press, leaked to Vatican officials, and next thing we know, we got Austin Ivory, synodal expert and scribbler, being the mouthpiece, I guess, of the Vatican on this. None of it makes sense, but look at it. In the wake of Pope Benedict XVI's abdication, Pope Francis removed Burke as head of the Apostolic Signatura, the Vatican's high court. He placed him as patron of the Sovereign Military Order of Malta. Then he turned 75, the customary age of retirement, this past June. And the Pope removed him as head of Malta that same month, when Cardinal Burke was still 74. His replacement was a Jesuit who's 80. Is this punitive action against those who question the direction of teaching under this pontificate? Does this seem a vendetta to those in Rome? How are cardinals reacting?
Well, absolutely. No, it does. And as much as the people around him who say, oh, he's never vindictive like this, well, that's clearly what's happening. He is being vindictive because you just have to look at what's happened. And it always seems to be the case that those who are faithful to the church's teaching, the prelates who dare to uphold the church's teaching and are brave in doing so, are getting effectively persecuted and marginalized. And you're not seeing that with others, for example, the German bishops or those prelates who clearly are pushing heterodox positions. In fact, they seem to be quite strongly favored. So, or if not favored, they're given much softer treatment. So you're seeing a very much a strong contrast here in treatment between these two sides in the church, if you like.
Ed, you have written extensively about the next pontificate, the men who wait in the wings. You've got a whole book to this effect. What impact might this be having on the next conclave? I mean, I spoke to some cardinals, and I have to tell you, these are not conservative cardinals or traditional cardinals by any sense. They were kind of appalled by this action. And again, the way it was handled, not whether the Pope could do it or not, but the way it was handled. And they suddenly feel they're all insecure in their position. And this, frankly, isn't what they bargained for. How might this shape the next conclave or the thinking of the men going into it?
Well, again, I mean, as I've said before, I think that this is really a pontificate of clarification, and you're seeing a lot of things being revealed, including the way this Pope really is and the way he's governed for the past 10 years. This is all coming out now. And I think you're going to see in the next conclave a strong reaction against this sort of successor. They will not want a Pope like Francis, I think, going forward, at least those who are following this. I think there's going to be a strong reaction. The pendulum will swing back, and you'll see, I think, probably someone quite different than Francis being elected successor of Peter.
And before we run out of time, the Pope's health was a major news item this week. It looks like he has the flu, according to the Vatican at least, and it was severe enough that initially they said, oh, he's fine, he has a little lung infection. Next thing you know, they canceled that planned trip to Dubai for the climate change conference, which the Pope was really looking forward to, and the world was looking forward to seeing him there. What are you hearing? How serious is his health now? Yes,
I mean, it's always difficult to get exactly how real his state of health is, but I think it does seem to be quite serious. I think the fact that he has breathing problems is a concern, because he, as we know, he only has 1.5 lungs. He lost half his lung or when he was a young boy. So this is a considerable problem for him. He says he has a sort of infectious bronchitis, and if that continues, then that is a concern. But he did seem considerably better today, and so we'll see how he's doing. But he does seem to be he has been quite poorly for the past few days. Yeah.
Well, Edward, we will leave it there. You can follow Edward Pentin's reports and columns at X. He's at Edward Pentin and at NC Register. Thank you so much, Ed.
Thank you, Raymond.